everybody, and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel and the third edition of Red Through and Through. And I'm delighted to have an old friend and a close friend of mine, Railton Elliott, on Red Through and Through today. How are you doing, Railton?
I'm doing extremely well, thank you. All the better when I'm speaking to you, my dear friend.
That's good news, mate. That's great to hear. Just to tell the viewers to start with, obviously you're not from Manchester, Railton, so where are you from and how did you get attached to United, so to speak?
I live off Portobello Road, in London, of course, and I went to study in Manchester at the university, and whilst I was there, I got taken to see United in the dying embers of Franco Farrell's reign, and I felt sorry for United because here were all these great players. Well, some of them were at the time. Anyway, the Holy Trinity. And they were being, I can't remember the first 2 or 3 games that I went to see United play there. But I mean, they were losing like to Coventry and Wolverhampton and teams like that, with all due respect. And obviously there was trouble up Mill, as they say, up north. So you'd see these wonderful players, and they were losing to players that were inferior to them. And there was obviously, the team was terrible. And although I don't remember the first home game I ever went to see, I mean, for God's sake, it's over 50 years ago now. Right. Nearly. I do remember the first away game I went to. I happened to be in London and went to what turned out to be a Farrell's last game, a 5-0 capitulation to Crystal Palace, I should say. And I was sitting near the director's box and could see Doherty is sitting with Louis Edwards and whatever. So you didn't need to be Sherlock to work out that as soon as this game was over, there was going to be a new man at the helm of the team. And of course, so it transpired. But the less said about that 5-0, the better. I think we'll move swiftly on from that one.
I do remember it. I remember another great game at Sellers Park where I think Dennis Law scored a great goal, and I think we won 5-2. But there seems to be a lot of goals every time we played at Sellers Park those days. But
yes,
I remember that 5-0, but not quite as fondly as the one that we won.
No, well, you've got selective memory.
Selective memory. So you were going to Old Trafford then, obviously that's early stroke towards the mid-70s.
Yeah, I did. And, I started to go and see them when Doherty took over and Doherty's early times. I mean, I can't say that they were that much better, frankly. And the team that Doherty ultimately built bore little resemblance to the dirty team of cloggers that he seemed to build around at first. It wasn't pretty at first with Doherty, but obviously towards the end, when it seemed that the game was up, that in the season they got relegated, he started to play some of the younger players, and of course the rest is history. And obviously I suspect that for many Reds of our generation, the second division year was very exciting, very dramatic in every sense.
It was, wasn't it? It was fantastic. Thousands of United fans used to go to the away games, didn't they? Because some viewers, younger viewers, won't realise that it was just pay at the gate those days. So in this day and age, if United have got 3,000 tickets, obviously there's some people go and manage to get in the away section, there might be 4,000 United fans at a game. But it's no exaggeration to say that some of those games in those years, there was 8, 9, 10, even 10,000 United fans at away matches.
Well, it was like going to a riot and a football game breaking out. You know what I mean?
It really was.
I mean, some of the behaviour was reprehensible in retrospect, but at the time it all seemed good fun.
Yeah.
And I think I've told you about the success that I enjoyed after the win at Nottingham Forest, the Jerry Daly penalty, as I recall, with a girl that I had taken there that I had yet to do the dirty deed with, so to speak. And she was so excited by the whole event that in a quiet corner of the car park after the event, in the car, we consummated our relationship.
So like Jerry Daly did, you scored that day.
Indeed. Yes, well put, sir. Well put. Very discreet.
I think it was fairly unusual, I think, for ladies to go to football games. But not unusual, but a lot less common than it is today. Like you say, it used to be a lot of hooliganism and lots of idiots on the terraces and all that. So I think you played your cards right there, taking us to the game, didn't you?
Yes. Well, I as I know I've told you before, on my passport where it says profession, it says coward. So I've always gone to great lengths to avoid any participation in anything to do with fisticuffs or hooliganism. No.
So just touching back on the, like you say, you saw the dying embers of the greats. You actually saw Charlton, Best and Law, even though they might have been on the wane by then.
Yes, I did. I think I even saw George sober a couple of times. No, they were obviously still great players in the way that they read the game, passed the ball, whatever, but they were not necessarily on the same wavelength. So I certainly didn't see them at their zenith, if you like, more than the deer. Excuse me. And of course, it wasn't long before the three of them were gone.
You still separate the people that you saw them play, though.
Yeah, I can say that I was there.
Yeah. So obviously Tommy Dock took over, and United soon started flying. They had Coppell and Hill on the wings. Did you have favourite players from the Tommy Dock era that you enjoyed?
No, certainly Pearson was always my favourite. Jim Holton, I liked, and Brian Greenough. They were the ones that I liked the most. I think Pearson stood out.
Pancho.
Yeah, he seemed to be a catalyst in the same way as Cantona was. I won't say Pearson had quite the effect that Cantona did, but he seemed to be the catalyst for the team. The one player that they really needed, a goal scorer, and he gave them the little something extra. There's something special,
He was a fan of Jim.
He was better than Ted McDougall, put it that way.
Yeah, he was the Ted McDougall replacement.
God bless him. Yeah.
Did he score something ridiculous like 9 goals in a cup tie for Bournemouth? Ted McDougall, I think, before we bought him against.
Yeah, and I think he scored about 9 goals for United in about 3 seasons, didn't he?
Yeah.
Point of fact, yes, he did. And I think, was it not against Margate?
Yes, yeah.
That he scored them.
Yeah.
It's funny the things you remember, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't remember where I put my bloody car keys, but I can remember that 50 at the minute. But 50 years ago, I can remember that McDougall scored against Margate.
They won 11-0. I mean, I might be wrong, but I think they won 11-0 and he scored 9.
Well, there we are.
And you mentioned Big Jim Holton, a folk hero, 6'2", eyes are blue. I think he was more than 6'2", by the way, but it rhymed.
Well, it did, yes. Eyes are blue and all that. Big Jim Holton's after you. I was watching a rerun of the Sheffield Wednesday 4-4 game where he broke his leg. There seemed to be on a rerun of the big match. And it was interesting because I don't know whether or not the camera crew had gone for a fag or something, but in the highlights, of which there were many, there was no highlight of Jim Holton, being carried off or even any mention of it until Brian Moore mentioned it at the end of the game. So, oh, by the way, during the game, United's centre half was carried off with a broken leg, which, if you hadn't have known that had happened, it would have led you to wonder why all of a sudden, in about the 20th minute of the game, big Ron Davis suddenly appeared on the pitch as substitute. And I know that we've talked about this before, but, those were the days when your substitute was a big lumbering centre forward. And I think that I'm right in saying that Ron Davis played about 9 times for United, but always a substitute. The idea that, well, I know that they have just about as many substitutes as you can throw a stick at these days, but I'm quite sure if you gave a football manager these days the opportunity to just have one substitute, it would not be a veteran centre forward of I mean, he could Ron Davis, but it was not exactly Harry Kane, you know what I'm saying, trying to be kind.
I think any manager worth his salt, if he only had one substitute available to himself, he'd pick like a flexible player who could play in different positions, wouldn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, but it was a measure of the time that Doherty or any manager, I suppose, would, when they had one substitute, would always think about somebody who would be there to help win the game rather than help, grab a point or whatever. Yeah.
So obviously Tommy Dock lasted a couple of years, didn't he? He was there. I think he was there about 3 seasons. Obviously, he got involved with.
Well, he was never going to stay anywhere long. I mean, in some ways, he's similar to Mourinho in my view in that respect. There are just some guys that their character, their makeup is such that wherever they go, it's always going to. They leave a trail of cordite behind them. It's always going to end in tears. Yeah. And it was always going to end in tears with Doherty. I don't think that the board, or certainly the wives of the board, particularly liked Doherty. Mary Brown obviously did, but quite apart from her, I don't think that Mrs. Edwards and Mrs. Gibson, etc., had much time for Tommy Doherty. So it was a shame that he left, but it was as sure as night followed day that it was going to end in some sort of way, that in the way that it did.
So you obviously you fell in love with United while you were at uni in Manchester.
Yeah,
did you stay in Manchester long after that, or did you move back down to London? Or
no, I moved ultimately. I actually studied. I did an extra year doing a postgrad in Manchester, so I was up there for 4 years, and then came back to London. Much as I like Manchester, I'm a Londoner, so there's no chance that I would stay in Manchester. And I've followed them ever since. And obviously the number of clubs that are in London and around the south gives it, makes it easy to see United regularly. Yeah. I know that there are people that travel religiously to every game. But, to be quite honest with you, the odd kickoff times they have these days, Sunday afternoon kickoff, 4 o'clock, you traipse all the way up to Manchester. But then you've got the traipsing all the way back after the game with the roadworks on the M6 and the M1 and all the rest of it. And you get in, you know, sort of 1 o'clock in the morning, you got to go to work first thing Monday morning. So it's never been.
Yeah, it's been a bit. It's Premier League years have been good in some ways, but they've been a bit. They've spoiled it in many ways, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I know people that I've friends and acquaintances that they go to every goddamn game. But I've become a fan of pouring something, you know, a cold beer in one hand and a hot woman on the other, on the sofa, watching it from the privacy of my own home, you know. Which is a good deal more attractive than sitting in a car on the M6 at 11 o'clock at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, fair shout. Yeah, did obviously you were still in Manchester then? I think after Tommy Dockett, it was Dave Sexton, I think, wasn't it? You're still around.
But you know what? Yeah, I think, as you know, I actually worked at Old Trafford to supplement my income in the catering department.
Right.
And I actually met David Sexton there, and a more charming man, you know, you just could not meet. And those that know more about football than I, you know, talk about how he was such a great coach and ahead of his time and all the rest of it. Yeah. But I'm afraid that any manager that saw fit to employ Mickey Thomas on the left wing, you know, I know that Hill irritated Martin Buchan with his lack of defensive nous, but I mean, he was box office.
Yeah.
Something that Mickey Thomas wouldn't.
So you held it against Mickey Thomas taking Gordon Hill's place, did you?
Well, I held it against him, the fact that he, in my view, he was awful. And he was so ugly. I mean, let's face it. You know, United shouldn't be employing ugly players.
Mickey will probably watch this, Railton.
Will he? Yeah. Well, no, I don't want to change any money. Thank you, Mickey. I'm sure. Look, I'm not. I've talked to you about football many times, and I know that you're far more a football technician. You understand the game more than I do, and I'm very sure that if Mr. Sexton and various Welsh managers thought that Mickey Thomas was worthy of a place in the team, they would know better than I, but I'm afraid I just never got him.
Right, yep. Okay, that's fair. That's your shout. That's fair enough, mate. It's not my opinion, Mickey, if you are watching, but there you go.
Well, I'm sure he's a very nice fella, and he does seem from his off-pitch activities, you know, bit of a lad, you know, and I'm sure he's good fun. But I mean, I suppose when it was not much of a toss-up, really, when it was him or Ashley Grimes. Does Ashley Grimes watch this as well?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it wasn't a high point, was it?
No, it wasn't, no. Right, okay, let's touch on, obviously, during that period, or very soon after that period, we beat Liverpool in the cup final in '77, which prevented them getting a treble, which obviously we ended.
Shame, wasn't it?
That was a shame.
Shame.
It was a shame.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I've been to all the cup finals and league cup finals and all the rest of it. And yeah, but with when I worked in the catering department at United, I'm made the acquaintance of people that worked in the ticket department. Right. Okay. Yes, and so I've always had access to tickets.
So which was the first cup final you went to, Railton?
Southampton.
Oh, you went
to. I'm still come out in a cold sweat when I think about it.
Yeah. He was offside.
Oh, miles offside.
Miles offside. Yeah.
No. I don't think that any self-respecting, decent, reasonable human being would argue the contrary. No, it was depressing. And I have to say that the win the following season did take some of the sting out of it. But I have to say that all these years later, I still feel a stab of regret and fury at the referee for allowing what was clearly an offside goal. Yeah. But there we are. One has to take them on the chin. You know.
To be fair, losing to Southampton one season and beating Liverpool and destroying their treble dreams the next season, if you could only win one of those two cup finals, I think it'd win hands down, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes, definitely. But I still think that somewhere or other there should be a little asterisk.
Yes,
you know, after where it said Southampton won.
It was a 0-0 draw, really. Yeah. It was a offside, yeah. So you started going to the cup finals then? Was you at the cup final against Brighton, the two? Oh, and Smith must score cup final.
And Smith must score. Well, I think that anybody that was there is still, and I still shake my head in disbelief that he didn't. I mean, I still expect to sometimes that I'm going to suddenly wake up and find that he did score because, you know, time, I'm sure you were the same when you saw it, time stood still. He was going to score. Yeah. There it was. Yeah. And when it hit Bailey, you were still looking beyond Bailey to see whereabouts in the net the ball was. And you're thinking, where the hell's it gone?
Gary Bailey. Well, everybody talks about his miss, but it was a fantastic save by Gary Bailey. That absolutely fantastic, really was. And the replay. Did you go to the replay on the? I think.
Oh yes, well I enjoyed that.
Thursday night. Was it a Thursday night?
A Thursday night, yes. And do you know what? I have to say, and I mentioned poor Ashley Grimes. Even at 4-0, he was the only substitute. Of course, Atkinson didn't give him a run out.
Did he not give him a run out? I don't know how you remember that. I wouldn't remember that.
No. I always thought, you know, come on, mate. You know, 5 minutes to go, 4-0 up.
Yeah.
You know, they took the Welsh. They had the Welsh winger Davis on board, killed himself, didn't he? Yeah. I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that Ashley Grimes didn't substitute him, but you know, you thought that it wasn't going to be a big risk on Ron's part to give Grimes 5 minutes on the pitch, and I have to say, that's always coloured my view of Atkinson. Yeah, I've always wonder why. I mean,
why wouldn't you? It's an FA Cup.
Why would you not?
Yeah, it was a bigger. It was absolutely massive then, the FA. It's not, I mean, it isn't a small game today, but it's nothing it was in those days. And for the lad to be able to get on the pitch in a cup final,
it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. And
it was.
4-0 up, you think especially when you've only got one substitute like it was in those days.
Exactly. And it wasn't as if he was going to, as they say, let anybody down.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he wasn't the greatest, although I do remember him scoring a fabulous goal against Aston Villa in front of the United fans in a 3-0 victory. So, you know, one always tries to speak well of people, you know. But I always thought less of Atkinson. I always thought there must be something about him that you would not do something that would just be like common human kindness.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Decency, yeah.
Yeah.
Not going to cost anything, is it? Not going to cost anything. The interesting thing about that is in this day and age, you can't imagine a football game going by without both teams making 2 or 3 substitutions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a whole game went by without United even making one substitute.
Exactly.
So I wonder,
and why would you not?
I'd love to know when that happened last, that we actually played. In fact, it's an interesting point that I'll make a note of. I'm gonna ask some stat man to look it up for me.
You're a bit of an anorak, you know. When this is...
I'd love to know when United last played a game and didn't make a substitution in the game. I wonder
Right.
if it could be that game that he took.
Well, you never know. There you go. You heard it first. You heard it first here, my dear friend.
Okay, so that's bringing us up to the late 80s, and obviously Sir Alex, or just Fergie, as he was known at the time, took over. Were you happy with the appointment of Alex?
Oh, well, happy with the appointment, because obviously the team were training on alcohol. You know, I mean, the team bus, I think, was sponsored by Carlsberg, was it not? So, yeah, I was happy. And like all United fans, had to rely on the assurances that all was going swimmingly behind the scenes, even though Mick Phelan was tripping over his bootlaces on the pitch. You know, one doesn't like to speak ill of people, but I mean, really, I hope he's a better coach than he was player. But there we are. What do I know?
Yeah,
So no, I think that, like, I don't want to speak to anybody, but for everyone else, and I can't really recall being particularly excited about it one way or the other, but I'm sure I must have thought, what on earth is going on? Are we ever going to win anything? I think that you got to a stage where with United, that the idea of actually winning the league was such a preposterous consideration. You never thought about it, you know. As long as we could win the occasional FA Cup, you know, and get through a couple of rounds of some European competition, you know, the UEFA Cup before losing to Ajax or wherever, as we seemingly did. You know, that was it. I mean, I don't know about you, but win the league?
It was a limit about expectations, wasn't it? An FA Cup or a League Cup, and like you say, just a reasonable run in the Europa League. UEFA Cup, as it was at the time, or even the Cup Winners' Cup.
That's right. I mean, so long as we could stay in it to at least have a visit or two to, you know, to Amsterdam for a quiet day or two. You know.
When did you start? I mean, obviously, I know this. I've actually attended a couple of European away games with you. You've been quite a traveller watching United in Europe, haven't you, Railton? When did that start?
Ostend away, which was a pre-season game that in their madness, obviously Manchester United thought was a good idea to go in August to Ostend, you know, where there used to be a ferry ran directly from Dover. And the Belgian Navy were in at the time. And I have relatives, actually, who live in Ostend. My mother was from Ostend, which is actually why I went to that particular game. And my relatives, sort of 50 years later, still talk about the time that Manchester United played in Ostend and the commotion there was, because it's a sleepy port, you know. It's like the sort of, I suppose you'd describe it as the Torquay of Belgium, you know. It's an elderly community. It's not, you know, it's not Brighton or anything like Margate, Blackpool, you know, somewhere with a bit of va-va-voom. No, this is a sleepy town. And quite why anybody at United thought that it would be a good idea at the height of the football hooliganism era to go and play a pre-season game in Ostend was anybody's guess. But there we are.
Thousands of hooligans descended on Ostend for a day.
So that was the first time I went there. And then there was, I think we played a UEFA Cup tie against Ajax. That was
remember that, yeah.
That was another one. I'm not sure that I think that we lost that. But anyway.
Yeah, we lost it. We lost, didn't we, in Amsterdam 1-0, I think, and then beat them 2-0 at Old Trafford. Yeah, they're doing.
All right.
But more recently, though, you've carried on doing Euro aways right through the 90s.
Well, I have done, because that one is, you know, I like to travel as well. And it's a good I pick and choose. I tend towards gravitate more to the sort of Milan and Barcelona and Madrid, being places that I would want to go and see and visit and stay in for 2 or 3 days anyway. And it gets increasingly more strenuous the older one gets. I'm actually a pensioner now, for God's sake, believe it or not. So the idea of travelling to far-flung parts, seeing as I don't command a chauffeur and my own private jet, it's I don't really think it'll be something I'll be doing again terribly soon. And I know that we've often talked about which is the best ground, and I don't know what is yours, by the way. Which is your favourite ground?
I like the Amsterdam Arena. I know you like the one in Munich. I like Munich as well. If we're talking about foreign stadiums, of course, I've not been to the new Spurs stadium. If we're going to talk about English stadiums, I think the best stadium in England, I think, is the Emirates Stadium.
Right.
So
I mean, for my money, the Alliance Stadium in Munich, apart from the fact that the sort of train station, tube station, if you like, that takes you from the city centre to the ground. I don't know if somebody read they got the designs upside down or whatever, or they entrusted it to some Turkish foreman or whatever. But quite why it's necessary to walk a mile from the platform of the state to the actual ground, well, you certainly work up a thirst by the time you get there. But for me, watching a game of football is how it is at Munich, where the seats are big, plenty of leg room. There seemingly is one toilet cubicle per patron. You know, and because of course the Germans, they don't understand the idea of queuing for anything. If they want to go to the toilet, they want to go to the toilet. They do not expect to have to stand in a queue. If they're hungry, they want to get something to eat. They want it now. And that, to me, is the way to watch a game of football.
Anybody who watches this who hasn't travelled around Europe to the different stadiums, there's obvious ones such as the Bernabeu in Madrid, the Nou Camp in Barcelona, and obviously the Milan Stadium, the San Siro. Fantastic cities to visit, fantastic stadiums in their own right, but they've seen better days, haven't they?
Oh, it's a horrible stadium. I mean, the Nou Camp. I mean, fortunately, when I went, my ticket, although I was late into the game, I blame Brian Robson for detaining me at the bar that we were in prior to the game, and I missed Ronaldo's penalty miss, which I didn't find out about until I rang my mum at half time. She was incandescent about Ronaldo. And
anybody who doesn't know, we missed a penalty in the first minute, I think, didn't we, or the second minute of the game? So
yeah, something. It was certainly long before I got into the ground. But you know, my ticket for the ground was at the side of the pitch, almost at pitch level, but a bit higher. And the idea of going in one of those stands right up in the gods.
The away fans, yeah.
For the away fans, and to be right up there looking down at these sort of matchsticks, that is not, in my view, a nice place to watch a football game.
I've been up there once when United have played in Barcelona. I went up there once, like you say. You can hardly see the players; they look like ants. You're that high up.
I bet. Yeah,
I've not been in the United end up there, you know, since that one occasion. I always go and sit with the Barcelona fans.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, some of these grounds, like the San Siro, for instance, which has a big reputation.
Yeah.
Now, Milan is a city I could go to over and over and over again. And some of the food stalls they have in the park that surrounds the San Siro. I mean, it's all, and you sit at tables there, it's almost like the quality of a good restaurant in England. But once you're in the stadium, they're, as you say, they're horrible and old and dark. And that brings me, if I may, to a bugbear of mine, because we talk of stadiums seeing their better days. Old Trafford has seen better days. The roof was leaking. Yeah. I'm not going to be a builder here and list, and anybody that goes to Old Trafford knows that is a ground that is going to very soon need a lot of money spending on it.
Yeah.
And you can bet your bottom dollar that our dear friends, the Glazers, they're not going to spend one single brass farthing of their own. So where's the money going to come from? And I think that we can safely say that the money will might be spent on players is going to be spent on the ground. It will not be the owners that pay. Don't be silly. I mean, it may end up being that they offer naming rights in some way. The Gillette G2 Old Trafford Park, something. You know what I'm saying? Of course, yeah. But there's going to be this is going to be something that's going to have to be addressed in the not too distant future, and I don't think it's going to be pretty. How they're going to fund it? Yeah.
You're right, mate. Old Trafford does fall into that category of. I think dilapidated might be a little bit over the top, but it's certainly seen better days.
But it's getting that way.
Yeah, it's seen better days.
Definitely. Yeah. And as you say, you see the, City's ground, Arsenal's ground, Tottenham. I haven't been, but by all accounts, it's fabulous. You don't say that about Old Trafford anymore. There was a time when, people would go, wow. But now, I mean, I even like Wigan's ground. I think that's a very tidy little place. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what? I'll tell you this. I have, during a midweek, either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, driven from London to the north of Manchester. 3 times I've been to see United play at Burnley, at Oldham, and at Wigan. And on each occasion, we've lost 1-0. I'm only grateful for the fact that I was not available when they played Blackburn, because I'm sure that they would have contrived to lose that 1-0 as well, simply out of spite, to spite me. I think that they know that I've driven all this way, and they think, yeah, that London geezer that slags off Mickey Thomas and Ashley Grimes will lose just to spite him. I know they do. They're doing it on purpose.
So you've driven up for midweek games all that way. So would you have stayed over in Manchester, or would you have driven...
No, driven back.
Driven back during the night, yeah.
Yes. Well, we're all crazy, are we not? We all do things and we think, why are we doing that?
So we've touched on the Nou Camp Stadium. Obviously, in 1999, we had a fantastic, unbelievable season, winning the treble. Were you lucky enough to get to Barcelona, Railton?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that. Sky, can I ask for a favour, please? It's half time. I need my glass refreshing.
Fair enough. Right, okay.
No, I had prior to in 1998, I'd had a misunderstanding with Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs over an industrial quantity of Moroccan herbs found at Dover port in a lorry. And for some reason, the jury believed that I was in some way responsible for this event. I know, it's shocking. I mean, honestly, you say to people, look, absolutely not guilty. I had found this contraband in the lorry and was on my way, driving it to the police station to bring it to the attention of authorities, when all of a sudden I was jumped by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, who appeared from all over the place. And when you say this circumstance, I was on my way to the police station, do people believe you? No. The world is full of cynics, Rick. It is so.
So in 1999, then you were otherwise...
Well, 1998, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, alas. But there we go. One recovers from these misunderstandings.
Did you manage to see the game then, Railton?
I saw bits of it, yes.
Right, okay.
I had asked, I made an application to the governor to be allowed compassionate leave so that I could travel to Barcelona, and I gave him my solemn assurance as a gentleman, of course, that I would return. But he very ungraciously pointed out that, well, for a start, I was already on the disrupted prisoners special unit, and it was very ungracious and turned down my application. You know, one tries to be nice and go through life.
Unbelievable situation.
It is, isn't it?
Okay.
You know. And what I always thought, what difference does it to you, my friend?
No difference to it whatsoever, is it? You know,
no.
United winning the treble, and you couldn't even watch it, let alone be.
I know. Still, there we are. So life is full of disappointments, my friend, and I'm sure I did get over it. You know, I coped.
There you go. Okay. So bringing it more up to date, mate, we've had, since the great days of Sir Alex, we've had David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Where do you think it's going, or do you think we should have stuck with any of the previous three?
Well, I don't really think it makes any difference who's going to be the manager, because so long as the Glazers are there, I'm sure you know that United posted last year losses of £23 million, which was to the penny a precise amount of special bonus that the Glazer twins, triplets, however many there are, the Glazers took themselves. They took £23 million out of the club to render it a £23 million loss. Now, we must be the only club that has owners that are busy taking money out of the club, whereas everybody else seems to have owners that are pouring money in, apart from the guy at Macclesfield, of course. Moyes, I think, was starstruck by the job and really shouldn't have been given it in the first place. But you've got Van Gaal and Moyes. I mean, look at Moyes, what he's doing at Tottenham now. I mean, those are two big...
Mourinho, you mean? You said Moyes. You mean Jose Mourinho?
That's Mourinho, yeah, sorry. Mourinho and Van Gaal are big beasts of European football management, and they were shown the door. I know that you feel that Mourinho had to go because he was calling out the players, but I think that was just a sign of his frustration. You know, that it's quite clear that the managers are asking the board, seemingly, or the esteemed Mr. Woodward, who we all know and love so much, and say, these are the players we want. And I know that Mourinho had Fred and Lindelof dumped on him. Well, you know, if you were Mourinho, you would be saying, but I know what I want, and if you give me these players, this is what I will achieve. And Pogba as well. and obviously the club were more intent on protecting the worth to the club of Pogba's Instagram account than they were of building a team according to Mourinho's specifications. I think that there's this. I'm not. It's a long time since I've read the Bible, but I do believe that there's some biblical story about having the tools to be able to do the job. You've got to have the bricks and the mortar and the sand and the straw, and you'll be able to do great things. Where you've got somebody watching and says, "Here's your new centre half, Victor Lindelof." And if Victor's watching this, please put in a transfer request.
It's a good shout,
mate. In short, I don't believe a word that Woodward says.
I think some of these young players who get a chance in the first team, I think Tuanzebe's looking the part. Look, they all look okay. But I'm just not sure that any of them. Maybe I think I'd probably say Tuanzebe has got more chance than the others, but I'm not 100% sure Fosu Mensah and Williams are eventually going to be good enough to play hundreds of games for Manchester United. That's okay. That's my view on it, but that remains to be seen. Railton, I can't thank you enough, mate. Time's up for that. It's been
my pleasure.
It's been
jolly nice to have had the opportunity. Thank you very much indeed. And I hope I'm glad I didn't swear.
Well done, mate. Well done. There's